Hello everyone, this is part 22 of What If Naruto Was Adopted by Kakashi, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Everyone was thankful for the rest they got, although they soon had to go into the main chamber. There was a huge statue with what looked like an area. Above there were observation areas. It was pretty dark tone to the place as well. Naruto could see the other teams that had made it. The sand, sound and mist teams were here alone with several other teams from his village. Naruto-kun, Hinata said, going over to him with a hug. She had been worried when she had left him in the woods, but seeing him here put her at ease. He gently hugged her back. Hey there, princess, by the way, thanks for the scroll. I promise to pay you back. Well, there is something, I'll tell you later, okay? She asked him, knowing that she had to bring him over to her father soon. He made it clear that the first break they had, she was to bring him home for a dinner so he could talk to him. Hey Naruto, looks like you lost the bet, Kiba grinned as he walked over to him. We've been here for about 3 hours now. Crap, Naruto muttered. Okay, first chance I get, I'll get you one. No hurry, but looks like we got to line up. The other boy said as everyone was gathering. So they all got into their teams and lined up. There were many other ninja from the village here, but in front of it all was the Hokage in his official white robes of office and hat. I'm glad to see you all here, the Hokage said to everyone. Although you should all congratulate each other on your success, it would seem that too many of you passed this test this year. Huh, what the hell does that mean? Someone asked. For the final round there are only a certain number of spots. The Hokage went on to explain that they would even held the exams. How the true meaning was showing the skills of each nation without actually fighting wars. A new ninja, a sickly looking one that seemed to cough a lot, showed up. He introduced himself as Hayat explained things further. He was the proctor for the third exam, but it would seem that too many had made it through. Since so many important people were coming, they needed to show only the best. Meaning that, they had to weed them out even further. So they would hold elimination rounds, 2 people would be randomly picked and then they would fight. The winners would move on to the third and final stage. That didn't go over very well for most of them, but it wasn't like they had a choice. So they had to just deal with it, it would seem. Everyone took their places up in the stands, usually against the railings there as they waited for the names to show up on the screen by the statue. Everyone was anticipating their challenges, although Team 7 knew they would have the hardest time. Sasuke wasn't sure what that mark would do, it was already hindering him. Naruto still felt really off thanks to that thing on his stomach, and Sakurashi still felt the aches and pains from that fight with the sound team. I wish Dad was here for this, Naruto said out loud with a sigh. He really wanted to have his dad here to see him, to make him proud. Well then just look behind you, a familiar voice said. Naruto and everyone else turned around surprised. Dad, I thought you would still be in the hospital. Naruto asked, seeing his father. Although Kakashi was on crutches and looked tired, he didn't seem to be in any pain. Anko was also standing next to him, her arm was still in a sling but otherwise she looked fine as well. Oh, don't worry, me and Anko were cleared, right? Kakashi said to her. Of course, she said, giving a huge smile. Konoha Hospital. Nurse Mai was just one of the regular medical staff. She was making her usual rounds at the hospital. She was checking on one of the new patients that had been brought in at this time. Mai knocked on the door to announce herself. Mr. Hitaki, are you awake? She asked. She didn't hear a sound, so she assumed her patient was sleeping. She opened the door to the plain hospital room. He was the only one in a bed at this point. The covers were pulled up, leaving only his silver hair poking out. She looked at the clipboard to see what his status was. Chakra exhaustion, that can be very dangerous, she said to herself, and she went over to him. Mr. Hitaki, it's time for your medication. She shook him but he didn't move. Mr. Hitaki, are you okay? She pulled the covers back and screamed. There was a life-size looking scarecrow with a crude drawing on the face of it. She took a moment before, this time, screaming in rage as she threw the clipboard. I hate ninja patients, she yelled out. They always had a nasty way of leaving the hospital before they were medically cleared. If people thought doctors were the worst patients, then they never met a ninja. They always thought they were so tough and could take anything. To make matters worse, this was the third one this month that had escaped. What's going on? Another nurse asked as she ran into the room. She saw the scarecrow and sighed. Not another one, we just lost the female that was brought in with him as well. Why do they keep doing this? Mai asked. The other nurse just sighed and shrugged, I have no idea. God, I hate the paperwork for this. Forest of Death Tower. Well, I'm glad you're both here then, Naruto said, but then he looked serious. Hey Dad, can I talk to you about something? Kakashi noticed the serious look and nodded. He wasn't sure what was up, but he limped off to the side as Naruto went over to him. The other two members on the team were wondering what was going on, especially Sakura. She noticed that Naruto pointed to his stomach and she guessed it was due to whatever had been bothering him. He then looked around and turned his back to everyone when Kakashi said something. He pulled up his shirt and Kakashi took a look. Then he pulled it down and they exchanged a few more words. Even if she knew how to read lips, she couldn't tell what they were saying with the masks on. She sighed. This was just one more question that had started to show up with her teammate. So what do you think, Dad? Naruto asked him in a hushed tone. Kakashi thought about it. He knew seals, but he wasn't a seal master. At the moment I can't do anything, but I do know of someone in the village that can help you out. Really? Well, that's great. I just hope I can pass this part with this stupid thing screwing with me. Hey look, they're showing the first match. Ino said loudly enough for everyone to turn to look. Hinata Hyuga versus Neji Hyuga. Everyone looked at the cousins as the two of them shared a look. Both didn't look like they wanted to fight the other, but they had no choice in this. Both silently went down to the arena, both looking like they wished they had a different opponent. Both were standing across from each other and only waited until the proctor told them to start. Hinata was nervous about this. She knew the kind of skills that Neji had, plus she didn't want to fight him. He was family and the closet thing she thought of as a brother to this world. Go for it, Hinata-chan, I know you can do it. Naruto shouted out and she felt the warmth of his voice flow into her. She felt more confident as she took her fighting stance, as did Neji. With the proctor declaring the start, she moved in first. She struck out with her fists, her eyes activated. She would have to end this quick and fast if she wanted to beat him. If this dragged out, she would lose. Neji activated his own eyes as he was surprised to be put on the defensive. Normally that was Hinata that went into the defensive. He had to admit she had more fire in her now, and he had a feeling why that was. He laughed on the inside. Naruto always did bring out things in Hinata that no one else could. He had to keep his guard up, and when he saw an opening he threw an attack to her arm. She backed away feeling the pain of the hit but quickly got back into her fighting stance. Neji felt a pang of regret. True, he had spared with her many times, but in this the winner would be the only one to continue on. Both of them would want to go on and give their fathers something to be proud of. For a branch member to go to the finals on his first try would be something his father could be proud of. But he also knew that Hinata had it tougher. Being from the main branch meant she was under a lot more pressure to perform. He could always take this tests again. It's not like someone expected him to win. The truth was that she might want this more than he did. Hinata continued to fight, but it wasn't an easy battle. Then she finally saw an opening. Neji always kept up one of the strongest defenses she had seen. To see an opening like she was now was nearly unheard of. She struck out, hitting him in the ribs, and he backed off. She blinked. That shouldn't have happened. She was waiting for a counter-attack, but he didn't. It was then that she knew what was going on. He was going easy on her. She decided she couldn't play it that way, so the next time he struck out, she lowered her defenses and took a hit to her face. Hinata. Neji froze when he hit his cousin. He hadn't meant to hit her that hard like that. Why did you do that? I won't win like that, Hinata said as she got up. Please, don't go easy on me. Neji looked a little guilty at her as she had caught what he was doing. He saw the look in her eyes and knew that she wouldn't let him win like this. He mentally sighed as she got back into his stance and waited for her to do the same. This time either one held back as they fought. Up in the stands, Naruto watched H's girlfriend fight. He had no idea that she was so limber. Bending backwards to dodge Neji's fist was very impressive. And a little hot, although a bit too young for it to be used. He did file that away for future use. The fight continued, but it was soon apparent that Hinata was outclassed. Neji always trained his hardest to push himself to the limits and then go beyond. It was one of the few reasons that he was glad that Guy was picked to be his sensei. Sure, he was strange and the training could be insane, but it helped him out. Although Hinata did train hard, she had to split her time between her duties as a main house member. Hinata was breathing hard as she tried to get up from another hit. Neji was getting more and more hits through her defenses. She was slowing down and was getting tired. Neji saw her struggling to get up. Although she knew she couldn't win, she was still pushing herself, refusing to get up. Please just stay down, Neji told her. If this goes on, then I could end up hurting you very badly. I won't give up. She stood up on unsteady legs. Neji knew that if this continued on, he would do serious harm. The gentle fist style took time, but it was designed to break a person apart. Now all her injuries were starting to add up and he couldn't continue. He wanted so much to make his father proud, but he could never look the man in the eyes again, if he put Hinata into the hospital. The role of the Branch family was to protect the main house. He let his guard down as he started to raise his arm. Proctor. Hinata's eyes widened as she saw what he was doing. He was going to give up. Neji-san, what are you doing? I won't allow myself to harm you anymore. I'm supposed to protect you, not hurt you. I'm sorry, but I can't let you continue on like this, even if it means giving up on my goal. Hinata didn't want to disappoint her father or Naruto watching, but Neji was going to remove himself. She didn't want to win like this. She couldn't claim a victory by this. Only that she didn't lose, but still it seemed like a cheap way to go on. She wanted to get into the finals on her own merits and her own strength. If she couldn't do that, did that mean that she deserved to go on? Neji turned to the proctor who was waiting for him. Proctor, I give up. Everyone turned to see Hinata with her arm raised. Proctor, I forfeit. Hinata-sama, why? Neji asked her. She gave him a sad smile. Because you deserve it more than me. I'm not ready, I know that now. I want to go on with my own strength, and now, you're stronger than I am. Neji looked at her in shock but quickly got a small smile on his face as he shook his head. He loved his cousin, but her big heart might get her into trouble one day. He went over and put out his hand. She smiled as she shook it. I look forward to when you are stronger then. Hinata smiled up at him and nodded. Naruto sighed. Although he was proud that she stuck by her morals and her pride, he had been looking forward to seeing her in the finals. Well, he would just congratulate her anyway on how well she fought. Kintsuchi vs Shikamaru Nara. Hey Shikamaru, Sakura said to him as he passed her by, watch out for her bells. They make this genjutsu that messes with your balance. Also her knee and wrist should still be weak. Alright, thanks. He nodded as he lazily made his way to the ground floor. He studied the girl and she did seem to favor one side. Although he hated fighting girls, well, he hated to fight period, but girls even more so. When the fight started, she seemed to start with her bells and Sakura had been right about them. It wasn't easy to figure out a way around this, but he did come up with a plan. This time her bells created clones of her, or at least the illusion of clones. There was one senbon with a bell on it somewhere, but he couldn't exactly go after it. She was throwing more of those damn needles and they really hurt going in. He kept her distracted with talking as he got his shadow jutsu to nab her. He made it look like it was the shadow of a thread, and so she would then copy his movements exactly. He got her into the right position, with her being too close to the wall while he was in the middle of the arena. They both drew out a kunai each, both threw it and both dodged by bending backwards. Too bad for Kin, her head slammed into the solid wall with enough force to knock her out. It was a short match, but that was all. Wow, he's a lot smarter than I thought, Sakura stated as she was next to Ino. When you can get him off his lazy ass, he can actually come up with some neat stuff, Ino told her best friend. So, who's next? Sasuke Uchiha versus Kabuto Yakushi. Sasuke, Kakashi said, getting his attention. Don't use the mark, you haven't had the time to fight it, and I could seal it to help, but we didn't have the time for it. Listen to him, kid, Anko said in a serious manner. At this point it will control you if you do. Alright then, I guess it's the hard way, the boy said as he reached for his katana. He would have to use his sword and fighting skills, as using chakra seemed to bring out the damn thing. Kabuto, however, had other worries. He was here to work for Lord Orochimaru. He had been his spy among the Leaf for years now, but this proved to be a problem. For years he had been downplaying his skills, but the Uchiha wasn't at his best. Things would get out of hand and either Sasuke might end up killing him, or he would have to show his true talents. Well, maybe there was another option. He didn't need to progress in this to serve his master after all. Maybe it would be for the best, he needed to help with the plan. Proctor, Kabuto said before moving. I don't have the chakra to fight, so I'll have to withdraw. You sure about that? Hayate asked, coughing a little. Kabuto nodded in replay, and the proctor was forced to make Sasuke the winner. What the hell? Sasuke yelled out. He's giving up without a fight. Well, maybe this is for the best. Kakashi said, relieved. Sasuke, however, hated to win like this. He felt embarrassed about this and scowled at the white-haired teen across the gap. Zaku Abumi versus Shino Aburame. This fight had been pretty one-sided. Even though Zaku was injured, he still tried to fight. The air cannons in his one working arm were nasty, but Shino was ready. He knew now the kind of attack this genin used, plus he relied on it too much. A ninja that relied too much on a single technique ran the trouble of it being your biggest weakness. Shino made sure the sound genin's attention was all on him, while he used his bugs to get into the pathway of the working arm. There was a tube in there, and over the course of the battle more and more insects would build up until it was blocked. With it plugged, the next time the boy tried to use it, he had a backfire effect. With his arm practically destroyed, it was easy for Shino to finish the boy off. He covered him in bugs and drained just enough chakra to make sure he couldn't move. Naruto Hatake versus Yoroi Akado. All right, here I go. Naruto yelled out as he jumped down to meet one of Kabuto's teammates. For some reason both him and the other guy wore these all-black clothing with dark glasses like Shino's, but with this strange mask. It was just a piece of cloth that covered the lower face, unlike his own mask. The proctor began the match and Naruto decided to try out his wind techniques. Wind blade. He yelled out after finishing his hand signs and with a flat hand made a slashing motion. Although this was something he had been working on, the effect was not what he wanted. Instead of a super dense thin line of razor air slicing at his opponent, all he got was a nice little breeze. Ah crap, Naruto muttered as his chakra was more messed up than he thought. Yoroi just laughed. What the hell was that supposed to be? Shut up, I'm having an off day, okay? Naruto said, annoyed as he tired his favorite jutsu. He managed to create a total of 5 clones. Alright guys, this time we got to get this right. You got it, one clone said as they all reached for the blade on their backs. They all drew the chakra blade that belonged to the White Fang himself. Since he couldn't trust his chakra at the moment, he was going to do it the hard way, but thankfully with his grandfather's sword and his clones it might make things more interesting. The clones came at his opponent as he was wondering what kind of ninja this other masked genin was. Yoroi turned out to be pretty quick on his feet as he managed to dodge Naruto's attacks. The other boy pulled out a kunai as he would use that to parry the blades coming at him. The boy turned out to be better than most as he slowly started to cut down Naruto's clones. Finally only the real one was left and now Naruto was attacking. Yoroi had a few close calls, even a small cut on his arm from when he had lost sight of one of the clones during the earlier attack. If the boy could make any more clones than that, he would have been in serious trouble. But now he had what he was waiting for. Naruto thrust with his blade and the other boy went to block. At least that's what it seemed. He parried the blade and moved in closer. He grabbed Naruto by the wrists and bent his arm back as he kept moving forward. He placed his weapon arm into Naruto's elbow. Now Naruto's arm holding his sword was bent back and had the kunai of his opponent dangerously close to his face. The hold was in place, but he was sure he could get out of it. He just wondered why the guy wanted to get so close. Yoroi grinned as he managed to get a hold of the genin. He would drain the boy of all his chakra. Already he could feel the power flowing into him. He grinned to himself. The boy was rich in chakra, more so than anyone he had ever drained before. What the hell are you doing? Naruto asked as he struggled to get out of the grapple hold. Taking your chakra for my own, he said to him. Naruto's eyes widened as he tried to struggle free, but not for the reasons that the other guy might be thinking. Yoroi chuckled as the boy tried to free himself, but it was no use. The flowing life energy was going into him. Then suddenly something happened. The power changed. Suddenly his body felt like it was on fire, like the chakra was trying to burn him from the inside out. He screamed in pain as he pushed the boy away from him. He was clawing at his own skin as the burning didn't stop. It's burning me. What is this power? What the hell are you? He yelled out at him. No human should have chakra like this. You're not human. You're a monster. He continued to scream and thrash until his body went limp. No one spoke as the proctor went to check on the boy. He was unconscious and he quickly called for medics to be brought in. They carried him off quickly, leaving Naruto to look around. He could see various looks around him, confusion being the most of it. Then he felt something else. He saw that Gaara was looking at him now. There was something in those dead eyes, like he was looking at interesting prey, or maybe recognition, maybe both. Mother wants his blood, Gaara said mostly to himself as his brother and sister gave him a look. They both knew what this would mean, that Gaara would want to kill that Naruto guy now. Hopefully they could make him wait until the finals. Up in the stand, Sakura knitted her brow together. There was something going on now. She looked around and saw everyone was just as confused. Actually, check that. Only the genins were confused. The adults didn't look as surprised. What the hell was that all about? Sasuke asked, seeing what she was seeing. I don't know, she said quietly back. Do you think they're keeping something from us? Sasuke wasn't sure, but he felt like there was something going on. There were too many mysteries going on about Naruto lately that he could ignore. They noticed that he was very quiet as he was making his way back up the stairs. He wasn't even looking at anyone. It was odd to see him like this. Hinata went over to him, but he didn't seem to respond. Something was really bothering him. Sakura could tell, if not even Hinata could get through to him. Misumi Tsurugi versus Sakura Haruno. When Sakura saw her name, she knew that she couldn't think about the mysteries about Naruto anymore. She prepared herself as she went to face off with the teammate of the person that Naruto had just put into the hospital. Like Yoroi, he was dressed in the same outfit. I have no idea what your blonde friend did to my teammate, but you'll pay for it. The older genin told her. Sakura felt a little nervous as she took out her tonfas. She wasn't sure what this genin was capable of as she had never seen him before. She decided to wait and see what he would do first. The older boy came at her and she prepared herself. He took out kunai and went to attack her. She dodged and slammed her tonfa into the elbow joint to break it. But to her surprise, it didn't break. It actually gave, but there wasn't anything solid there. The momentary surprise gave him a chance to slam a fist into her stomach. She grunted as she took a step back and brought up her other weapon to defend against his blade. But then she felt another blow, which was confusing as she was out of his range. At least she had thought as much as she felt something grab around her ankle. She looked down and was surprised that one of his arms was wrapping itself around like a snake. She slammed her metal weapon onto the flesh, but it was like hitting rubber. That won't work on me, little girl, Misumi said as he pulled and she was taken off her feet. She landed onto her back and then was taken into the air as he whipped her up like a chain. She was slammed back into the ground but kept the grip on her weapons. One of the things she had been trained to do was never let go of your weapons unless you wanted to. She felt the arm gone and quickly forced herself to roll and get some distance. She managed to get up only to see him smirking at her. My joints can be dislocated at will, plus my body then stretches out. You can hit my body, but you're only hitting soft flesh. The odds of you hitting any of my bones are very small. Sakura knew she was in trouble now. He had the range on her and she couldn't hurt him at this distance. Suddenly his arms shot out at her again and she was put on the defensive. That's how her fight went as she kept dodging his arms, trying to think of a way to attack. She tried shurikens but he only dodged them. But sooner or later she had to make a mistake, and while dodging one arm another managed to hit her in the kidneys. Staggered, she was easy prey as his arms wrapped around her entire body now. The arms started to crush her body. She grunted out in pain as she couldn't breathe at the moment. She knew that if she breathed out, she wouldn't be able to take in any more air, but her lungs were already starting to burn with the need for air from all the physical activity she had been doing. Go ahead, kid, try and take a deep breath, he goaded her. It will be over quickly, and if you don't, I'm pretty sure your ribs are about to break anyway, then I'll just crush your internal organs. Sakura hadn't thought that he was actually going to try and kill her, but this was the Chunin exams. Even if he was a leaf, it would seem that killing fellow ninja happened. She needed to think. She hadn't been in a position like this since that first real mission. The mission where she had killed a man. It was a painful memory, but she had grown a little harder to it. She needed to think. She couldn't die here. She wouldn't die here, she decided. She couldn't use her arms or legs, so what did that leave? There was one option. It wasn't glamorous, but it might be effective. She looked down and opened her mouth as she quickly bit into the flesh near her mouth. She bit down as hard as she could taste blood in her mouth and it wasn't hers. He cried out in pain as his arms loosened up and she managed to slip out. Well, that was effective, Anko smirked at her. Girl knows how to fight dirty, I think I like her more now. Hopefully she can capitalize on it, Kakashi said as they watched on. Misumi was cradling his arms, seeing the blood flowing out of it. It wasn't too bad, but it still hurt. He couldn't believe the girl actually bit him. He stretched his arms out. This time he was going to crush her limbs and then wrap around her neck. He was going to finish her off quickly before, now he was pissed. Sakura knew what to expect this time, but she also had been working on a plan. So far this guy only seemed to be able to extend his arms, so the rest of his body had to be solid. She only had one chance. She carefully watched how they moved as she looked for her opening. The world seemed to slow as her mind increased, and suddenly she saw it as clear as day. She jumped between the hands as she rolled forward. Letting her momentum carry her, she kicked off and managed to cover most of the distance. Sakura knew that he would bring his arms back, it was only a matter of time of who was quicker. Sakura saw the arms retracting, but she wasn't sure if she would make it. She only had one chance. She put all the power she could into her legs and jumped forward. She threw one of her tonfas at her opponent. He took a moment to dodge it, but that was what she wanted. He was now in her path and she thrust forward, hitting him in the solar plexus. There was no joint there, no way of him shifting or moving the parts of the body of his core. He groaned in pain as his arms went limp, and he staggered back. Sakura wasted no time, she couldn't let him recover. She twisted her tonfa around and with the short end, jabbed it straight into his jaw. A large piece of bone that she knew he couldn't protect like his arms. His head snapped back as he staggered a few more steps. She kicked him in the stomach, and as he bent forward she swung her weapon in an arc to catch him in the side of his skull. He fell to the ground with her panting as her adrenaline started to drop off. Damn, Ino muttered to herself, she was glad that she wasn't fighting Sakura. Those weapons of hers may not look lethal, but they were nasty. Kakashi smiled as he could breathe more easily now. He looked to Guy and Asuma, looks like I won the bet. All my genins made it. Maybe, but Ino and Choji still have to fight. Asuma said. And Tenten and Lee as well, you may not be the only one with their full team going through, Guy said to his eternal rival. Anko smiled as Sakura made her way up to them. Hey kid, that wasn't bad. Thank you Anko-sensei. Sakura said, feeling proud at how she had done. Nice going Sakura-chan, Naruto said, a bit more normal again. Although he seemed a little down about his match, but at least he seemed more like his normal self. Sasuke looked at her and gave her a rare smile with a nod. She blushed a bit. He was actually proud of what she had done. Her inner self was very happy about it, but she kept her emotions in check. She gave a small smile and a nod back to him as she took her place with her team. So far things were going well for the exams, thought the Hokage. He was happy to see that Kakashi's team had made it all the way through. It was a very rare thing to happen, but it went a long way to prove that he could deliver what he promised when the team was formed. Already he could see potential in them all. Although it was a bit sad that the last Uchiha couldn't fight, but from the reports he got, that might have been a hidden blessing. The thought of his old student still pained him deeply. He always wondered where he had gone wrong with the boy. What had caused him to change, or had it been gradual? Had he been blinded by his love for the boy that made him miss the signs? That was the sad thing, he had loved the boy almost like a son. Such a gifted and talented boy, he had so much promise, and yet he became nothing short of a monster. The old man always wished he could undo his greatest failure. Orochimaru hadn't always been the man he was now. Looking at the youngsters here, he was wondering how many Orochimarus lay hidden under the masks of innocence. He was feeling his age now. He was old and tired, but the village still needed him. He just wasn't sure just how much longer he could hold out. His spirit still held the will of fire, but his body was another story. Perhaps it was time to start thinking on retirement again. He was one of the oldest cages in history, but times were changing. He could feel it in his bones, and a new leader would be needed soon. The only problem was with who. The board came alive as the names randomly danced over the screen until it settled on 2 more names. Dosu Kinuta versus Choji Akamaiki. Oh man, I got to fight the scary-looking mummy guy. Choji had remembered what he had seen before, how that guy had taken out Kabuto with one blow. Oh come on, you can do this, Ino told him. I bet Asuma-sensei will take us out to barbecue if we all pass, right? Asuma smiled and nodded his head. That's right, if you all pass then I'll take you all out, on me. He hoped they did win, or at least tie with Kakashi's team, then the pot would be split and he could afford it. Every Chunin exams, all the Leaf Ninja Jonins would put in for a pot. Everyone that had one winner got a smaller prize, but no one had gotten a slam dunk before, that is until Team 7. Just be careful of that thing on his arm, Shikamaru said to his best friend. I don't know what it is, but it looks important. Oh. Okay then. Thanks, and you can bet that I'll bring home a win. Choji said with enthusiasm as he walked down to the arena. He could already taste the juicy meat, man, he couldn't wait to eat. Soon he came face to face with his opponent. Look, fatty, if you want to die that bad then by all means give me your best shot. Dosu said to him, chuckling. What did you just call me? Choji yelled out enraged. I'm not fat, I'm husky, expansion jutsu. His whole body just expanded like a balloon, then he pulled his arms and legs into his body like a turtle as blue chakra was seen for a moment. Then his head went in and he became a giant ball. Dosu was taken by surprise as he never heard of something like this before. He quickly threw himself to the left as the other boy came at him like some kind of giant boulder. The boy was spinning himself, making himself move with a decent amount of speed. Dosu noticed that although he was large, he was only fast in going one direction. When the big boy turned, he had to turn in a wide arc and he doubted the boy could adjust his aim on the fly. He dodged again to check and it was working out. He was able to dodge, but the other boy couldn't turn quick enough to capitalize. Now he just needed a way to make the boy stop for just a moment. He couldn't hit him while he was spinning that fast. He remembered what happened to Kin and decided to use the wall to his advantage. He maneuvered himself to the wall and waited. The boy was coming at him just like he knew he would, and at the last moment he jumped out of the way. Choji slammed into the wall, making himself stuck. Now Dosu had a chance. Although he couldn't use his sound wave with his head covered, sound could travel in other ways. He slammed his gauntlet into the body's body and activated it. The sounds moved through the body, they traveled through it until it reached the inner ears. At that point it was all over as Choji lost his concentration and turned back to normal and fell the ground unable to stand. Oh man, I was sure he was going to win, Ino whined, what the hell happened? Choji's body acted like a conduit for the sound, Shikamaru told her. The sound traveled inside of him instead of outside. Oh man, I was looking forward to getting treated too. Ino sighed. Well, I hope he's okay at least. Yeah, he should be fine if just really dizzy. He told her. Kiba Inuzuka vs Gendo Kaji. Kiba looked at his opponent. He didn't know what to expect from the foreigner, although his ice blue eyes were hard and cold as his face. The boy looked very controlled and it was hard to tell what kind of ninja he was. Well, he wasn't going to wait around. He charged forward, but the other boy just stood his ground. As soon as he lashed out, at the last moment the boy moved. It was quick and fast. He first dodged his blow, then took his wrist and gave a punch to his armpit. The pain Kiba felt was intense, but the boy didn't stop. He kicked him hard in the ribs, making the leaf ninja fly back. If this is the best you can do, you will die this day. Gendo said coldly to him. Kiba held his arm from the pain. The nerves under the armpit were very sensitive and apparently the mist ninja was good as hand-to-hand combat. Well, it looks like he would have to pull out all the stops. He placed his hands into a seal for a special one that only his clan use. Ninja art of beast mimicry. All fours jutsu, Kiba thought to himself as the chakra in his body started to make the changes. This was something that his clan used. It was a secret how it was done, but what it did was make the user more canine. Giving him enhanced senses but also enhanced speed, strength and reflexes. His canine teeth expanded as his fingernails turned more into claws. He leapt at the other boy ready to slash with his claws. Gendo was hard pressed to dodge this time as the claws managed to just cut through his clothing, but only just that. Gendo took a step back as he studied his opponent. The boy was too sure of himself and charged right in. Kiba did just that, charging in wildly, but Gendo was ready for that kind of speed and adjusted accordingly. He jumped back and reached behind the small of his back with his left hand. He pulled out a knife he kept for in close combat where his sword was too large. He dropped down as he gave a cut to Kiba's arm, then revered the blade and swept back with it, cutting Kiba's coat as he missed the ribs. Kiba hadn't expected the mist ninja to be this tough. Well, he would have to deal with not just him, he was saving his dog just in case, and it would look like it was time to call him out. Akamaru, I think it's time, boy. He dug into his pocket as he pulled out one of the special bills used for the dogs. His small dog jumped up to eat it, his fur became brown as he got more wild looking. This was a battle pill used to make the dogs even more powerful in battle. Kiba crouched down as his dog landed on his back. There was a puff of smoke and suddenly there were two Kibas there in the arena. Gendo didn't look impressed. 2 or 1, it's still the same to me. Oh yeah, well try this one, fang over fang. Kiba shouted out as both of them jumped out at him and turned into twisting whirlwinds of destruction. Gendo quickly overcame his surprise and dodged, but he was hit slightly on the shoulder. His uniform was ripped and also he felt his skin was torn slightly as well. He didn't get much of a breather as they came around for another go. He pulled his sword to parry one of them, but the other slashed him in the back. He was kept on the defensive, he was only just barely to keep from being torn apart even more. Gendo pulled a smoke bomb to hide himself, but the smoke may had blinded most ninja, but for an Inuzuka they had other ways to see. You think this will stop us? We can still smell you. Kiba grinned as they fought on. Who said that was the reason I wanted to hide from your sight? Came Gendo's voice. The only problem was that Kiba heard it behind him, but he could smell him from ahead. Then a sharp pain bit into his skin as he cried out. He heard Akamaru cry out as well, but more cuts came into Kiba's body. When the smoke cleared, both Kiba and Akamaru were laying on the ground wounded from several cuts. There were also several versions of Gendo there as well. What the hell? Kiba asked weakly. Kai, Gendo said as the others dissolved into water. He had used water clones while under the cover of the smoke and attacked from different angles. Kiba lay there feeling the pain of the sword slash, it hurt like hell. He had never been wounded before and he could smell his own blood. He coughed as he looked up to the ceiling trying to move, but it hurt too much. Gendo walked over to him, dragging the sword on the ground. The scrapping sound was like a death toll in Kiba's ears. He looked up to see the other boy with a cold grin on his face. Time to end this mutt, Gendo said as he raised his sword to finish him off. Kiba could only stare in horror as this boy was going to kill him. Kiba-kun. Hinata yelled out as she covered her mouth in horror. Kurenai-sensei. Proctor. Kurenai yelled out, as the boy sensei I forfeit for him, stop the match. Kurenai didn't want to have the boy die there in the ring and didn't want to take the chance that the proctor could wait too long to stop it. These exams were deadly at times and the mist ninja was out for blood. Alright, this match is over then, the proctor said. Gendo looked sourly at him. What are you talking about? The boy still lives, so this fight goes on until one of us dies. That is how we do things in my village. The strong survive and the weak die. That is the way of the world. We only came here for one reason. He eyed Team 7 who were watching him. To show how a real mist ninja does things. His sword started to come down, but to everyone's shock, Kiba's body faded away. The young mist ninja was taken aback by it but soon found a kunai to his throat. He looked to see that Kurenai was behind him, giving him a hard look that said he would have to get past her to finish Kiba off. The mist genin knew that he was no match for a jonin, and that the boy was most likely hidden behind some kind of genjutsu. He put away his blade as he glared back at her. Coddling your students will only get them killed when you are not there. It is better he dies now so that a stronger one can replace him. We do things differently here, she told him. Obviously, the boy said in disdain of her actions and left to join his teammates. Kurenai got rid of the genjutsu as the medics came running to see to the boy. Kurenai was worried. The wound was nasty, although thankfully it looked like Kiba would pull through, although it would take time for that wound to heal, and would be his first scar from battle as well. She looked to see the worried looks of her team and of the others who were friends with the boy and his dog. She would have to let them know he would be okay, although the boy's comment on coddling rang through her head. Was she too easy on her students? She didn't think so. Then again, the mist were more extreme in their practices and training. Perhaps she should review a bit of their training, if they ever came up against someone like that again and she wasn't around. The thought wasn't a pleasant one. Tenten versus Temari. Tenten grinned as it was her turn up. She couldn't wait for her chance. She got the ring eagerly as she waited for the other girl to show up. She was at least a year older and seemed to have some kind of weapon behind her. That was good. She loved fighting other people who used weapons. Neji was starting to worry. Since the start of this match, Tenten had not been doing too well. It was just bad luck that she got the worst possible opponent for this match. He hadn't known that Temari was a wind user. Tenten was trying everything, but she couldn't get close to the Suna girl. That fan was keeping Tenten at a distance. Plus the strong winds were blowing all her weapons away. He watched as Tenten was forced to use the one technique that was her best one. He watched as Tenten pulled out 2 scrolls. They looked like any normal kinds, but Neji knew just which ones those were. This was Tenten's own technique, the Twin Rising Dragon. Tenten smiled, thinking she could still pull out a win as the 2 scrolls rose up into the air, making a double helix. They stayed up in the air almost as if hanging on strings. Tenten jumped up as she put chakra into her legs and reached the top. The scrolls were filled with seals that held many weapons she had sealed into them. One by one different weapons would be released, and faster than a normal human, Tenten threw out weapon after weapon. Unfortunately, Temari wasn't impressed. She easily blew the weapons and Tenten away with one giant blast from the fan, and all the weapons were blown away. Tenten fell as she lost her concentration and she slammed onto Temari's fan right onto her back. Tenten cried out as she went limp and Neji froze in horror. That kind of fall could cripple a person or kill them if her spine broke just right, plus that Suna girl did that on purpose. She smirked at her own superiority as she just cast Tenten aside. As soon as the proctor called the match, Neji raced to her side. He knelt down as he checked her out. His eyes could see fractures, but the spine was intact, thankfully. Tenten moaned in pain. Her body hurt and she felt numb in some areas. Tenten, can you hear me? Neji said gently to her. Neji? Tenten asked weakly. Lay still, you took a bad hit, he said as he stopped her from moving. I lost, Tenten said in a defeated tone. She let her team down, she let herself down. She had tried so very hard, but she had just been outclassed the entire match. It had been pathetic. What must Neji think of her now? She didn't want to open her eyes to see the look on his face. I'm sorry. Don't be, he said in a surprisingly gentle tone. You should be proud, you fought without giving an inch. I'm proud of you. Tenten's eyes shot open as she looked up at him. She was surprised to see the look on his face and eyes. She could see that he wasn't disappointed in her. In fact, he looked worried for her and something else, something she couldn't understand, but it made her feel a bit warm inside for some reason. She felt him holding one of her hands and she blushed a bit. She knew that Neji rarely showed his emotions. After all, most Hyuga were like that. So for him to show such a simple gesture to her, spoke volumes. The medics came out yet again with a stretcher and gently placed her in it, being mindful of her neck and back. Neji felt Guy's presence behind him as he watched them load her onto it. It was just bad luck that she got that Temari girl for an opponent. Guy said to him and he nodded. Give my apologies to Lee, will you, sensei? Neji told him, not looking at the man. I want to make sure she's well, so I will most likely miss his match. Guy smiled at the boy before him. Now there is the true spirit of youth. Looking out for your comrade shows the fire burns bright in you, my young student. I'm proud to see it. Neji sighed as she shut his eyes. He just wished that Guy wouldn't make such a big deal of things. As he walked off silently to ensure that Tenten would be okay, he did cast a look and locked eyes with the Suna girl. He gave her a cold look. He made a vow that if he met her in the finals, and he would avenge Tenten's defeat by that girl's hands. Ino Yamanaka versus Amy. Ino wasn't sure what to expect when she got into the arena with the mist girl, but after seeing what the girl's teammate had done to Kiba, she wasn't taking any chances. So this is my opponent, some frail-looking girl playing ninja. Amy smirked at the shorter girl in front of her. What did you say? Ino yelled out. I'll have you know I come from a long line of ninja. Your ancestors must weep themselves to sleep every day then, Amy said in a deadpan expression. Ino had a facial tic at that point. There was no way she was going to let this dark-haired girl say things like that. Although she too was wearing bandages, hers looked strangely different to Ino. She couldn't place it, but whatever it was, she was sure it wouldn't be much. Fine then, here I come. Ino yelled out as she threw 2 kunai. Amy pulled out 2 and deflected them with 2 of her own. The 2 started with using taijutsu against each other. Ino was about average with it, but the other girl trained a lot harder than Ino did. Soon the blonde girl had to keep her distance from the other girl's attacks. Ino knew that she had no genjutsu, and her only ninjutsu besides the academy stuff was her family jutsus. If only she could use them, but there was a major problem with that. Ino had to get her to stand still, in order to use her mind jutsus. It was the main weakness in him, plus the other major one being that if she missed, her body would be defenseless. Given what that guy had tried to do with Kiba, she didn't feel like getting killed while knocked out. Amy, stop playing around. Gendo called out. I was just starting to have some fun too. Amy pouted a bit. She unwrapped the bandages on her arms and Ino was left wondering what was going on, that is until they shot out at her. Ino dodged them but felt a sharp pain on the side of her face. She reached up and felt blood as her eyes widened. My bandages are special, they have thin wires woven into them, turning them into both armor and weapons. Amy grinned as she pushed out her hands as many different strands fly out at Ino. Ino tried to dodge but there were just too many, and she didn't have enough speed to help herself out. Cut after cut was forming on her body, nothing fatal but Ino had a feeling the other girl was enjoying it. Sakura's hands tightened on the rail watching the girl that was her best friend being cut to pieces. Ino was like the sister she never had, but to see her like this all bloody made her surprisingly angry. She wanted to jump down there and stop it but it would disqualify Ino and possibly herself, but she was prepared to do it anyway and damn the consequences. Asuma won't let it go too far, Kakashi said, not even looking at her, almost as if he was reading her mind. We Jonin wouldn't let our students die unnecessarily. We put you all into harm's way to prepare you for your life as a ninja, but we are always try to ensure that it's not something you can't handle. Ino was starting to feel weak, she could feel the stinging cuts all over her body, and the warm fluid of her own blood. She couldn't last much longer at this rate, she was losing too much blood. I think it's time to finish this, I've had my fun. Amy smirked as her bandages shot out and managed to grab Ino's arms and legs. She cried out as the material started to cut into her arms. Well, that's it. Shikamaru sighed. She can't get out and she can't quit. That girl is going to cut her limbs off. He looked to their sensei and he sighed and nodded. I agree, Asuma said. He had hoped that Ino would have done better, but this mist girl was just too much for her. Proctor, as sensei for Ino, I call my right to forfeit in her place. Very well then, the proctor said. The winner of this match is Amy, you can let the girl go now before I kick you out. Amy sneered as she let the blonde girl fall to the ground. Asuma and Sakura were the first to run towards the girl. Sakura hadn't seen so much blood in a very long time. To make it worse, it was all Ino's. Will she make it? She asked the medics that ran out to her. She's lost a lot of blood, one of them said, putting in a blood pill into Ino's mouth. It would help restore her blood loss for a bit, but she would need a transfusions. If we hurry, she shouldn't be too bad. Sakura sighed as she watched them cover Ino's wounds and wrap her up. Only to leave Ino's blood staining the floor. Sakura glared angrily at the mist girl as she just walked off like it was nothing. Gaara versus Akuma. The mist ninja stared at the younger boy, although for some reason he was getting an uneasy feeling about him. There was just something about the boy, the eyes were those of a killer that he was sure of. But his body language told him that he didn't care one way or another about this fight. He was a strange one, but he decided to test out this boy's abilities first. As soon as the match started, he threw out several kunai to see what the boy would do. He was surprised to see a wall of sand suddenly show up out of nowhere and stop them. The boy hadn't even moved a muscle. To have that kind of control over something without moving was already telling the mist ninja much. Well then, let's if you can hit what you can't see. Akuma smirked as he started to make hand seals. As soon as he had finished, the arena floor was being covered in mist. Hey, I remember that. Naruto yelled out. Yes, it's a move that comes from the Mist Village after all, Kakashi said as he watched them. This should be interesting to see how this plays out. Akuma knew that the boy wouldn't be able to see him coming. He practiced being a silent killer and now he was putting it to use. He quickly and quietly ran up to the boy ready to strike, but still the sand was blocking him. Every blow he threw, somehow the other boy was able to get the sand back up. It didn't make sense. The Suna boy shouldn't have been able to see him. He was sure the other boy couldn't smell or hear him, so how did he do it? As the mist started to fade, Akuma looked hard at the other boy and then he noticed something. Looks like you'll be slowing down some, Akuma said, seeing his sand. Sand isn't a good thing to mix with the water that's in the air from my mist fog. So let's see what happens if we use a lot more water. Akuma went through the seals and called up a water dragon missile. The large dragon was formed out of the water that was still in the area. A true master of this could use the condensation in the air to form it, but there was still plenty of water molecules left over to use as well. The giant dragon shot out at Gaara as his sand went to protect him out of instinct. There, let's see you use your sand when it's nothing but mud. Akuma ran forward, not letting Gaara take a breather. Already he could see the sand had been turned into mud from the water it absorbed. Gaara had been taken by surprise. There was little water in the desert, and the mud, although he could feel it, was heavy and sluggish. He couldn't move it fast enough to stop the boy from landing a punch at his face. The Mist Ninja didn't stop as he continued to pummel on Gaara. He kept trying to move the sand, but it was useless while wet. He called forth fresh sand from his gourd and went on the offensive against the Mist Ninja. So that's what's in there, then I guess I'll have to do better than that. He grinned at Gaara. He went into more hand seals. Water cannon jutsu. With that he opened his mouth as a stream of water shoot out at Gaara. When he was soaked, Akuma went in for the kill. He pulled out a kunai and with a slash went for Gaara's neck. There was silence for a moment as a line was shown on Gaara's neck but no blood. Everyone was confused as to how he wasn't bleeding. Then sand started to seep out of the wound as it closed up. The hell, you have sand inside your body or something? Akuma asked out loud. Hey, is that even possible? Naruto asked his father. Kakashi thought about it. Somehow I doubt it. Look at the skin where he was punched, there is no bruising yet. My best guess is that he's got another layer of sand that is covering his skin like a second line of defense. I have to admit this genin has one of the most impressive defenses I've even seen. So he's going to lose? Naruto asked. I'm not sure, it depends on if he can get on the offensive. Akuma was getting frustrated now. Just how much water did he have to dunk on this red-headed boy to get past that damn sand? Well, at any rate it didn't matter. If he had to drain his chakra and pour a lake onto him, he would do it. Meanwhile, Gaara had his own plan. Ever since the first time his sand was wet, he had been slowly leaking his sand under the arena. Sand could be made from a lot of things, including crushed rock. When he realized that his sand had a weakness to water, he came up with a plan. Slowly his sand had been crushing the rock under their feet to create a large amount of sand under them. He couldn't wait to see his enemy's blood. This one was proving more challenging than most, but he was still nothing to him. Asuma made it only a few steps back before the ground under him fell apart and sand came up from the ground to surround his body. Gaara grinned manically at the ninja as the sand stared to envelop him. You weren't too bad, mother now wants your blood. What the hell are you, some kind of bloodline freak like most of the ninja in this weak village? Akuma said as she struggled to get out. That kind of control over sand wasn't natural. He knew what the boy had done, but to take all those hits, fight and still do this was insane. No, I'm something worse, Gaara told him as he raised a hand. Sand coffin. The sand completely covered the Mist Ninja now. Gaara then closed his fist as he said, sand burial, and the sand contracted. The ninja was instantly crushed by the pressure of the sand. Blood stained it as more blood was literally squished out of the sand like toothpaste. The arena floor was covered in blood now. The sand receded and what was left of the ninja couldn't even be called a human corpse anymore. The sickening display made many uncomfortable. Only the hardened adult ninjas could really stand the sight. Although the two surviving Mist Ninja didn't look pleased at all, they looked at Gaara with naked hatred at the death of their teammate but didn't say or do anything. Gaara took his sand back into the gourd on his back as he calmly walked up the stairs with a bored look on his face. What the hell? Choji asked, feeling very sick. It was only luck he hadn't thrown up at what had happened. Hinata had passed out with Kurenai looking over her. The others were just as unnerved. Sasuke knew a strong opponent when he saw one, but he also noticed the Gaara and the Mist Ninja wouldn't hesitate to kill. He remembered his own first time killing. Had he really been like that? Looking back on the incident, he knew now why Kakashi had taken him aside for that talk. Looking at those three, he could see the kind of people you became when killing was nothing to you. Sakura was next to him, barely able to stand. Her legs felt weak, and watching the medics take away the remains wasn't pleasant. It was another cold reminder of the life she chose for herself, that one day she or someone she knew could end up just like that. Kankuro versus Rock Lee. Yes, finally. Lee shouted out with joy. All this time he had wanted to join in and fight, and finally he was getting his chance. I've been waiting so very long to show the world the burning flames of my youth. That's right, Lee, show them all the power of youth. Guy said to him. Guy-sensei. Lee. Guy-sensei. Lee. Hey, we doing this or not? Kankuro yelled out as he waited for the strange, green-clad boy to get down to the arena. Where all the ninja in his village freaks or something. At any rate, by the time the kid had reached the arena, he was already getting bored. Lee was totally prepared for a fight. He got into his usual stance as he waited to begin. As soon as the match started, he ran towards his opponent. He sent a flying kick to Kankuro's stomach, followed by a barrage of punches. A normal human would have been hurt by such blows, but something was wrong. The old Asuna boy was still standing. Lee stood there unable to see how the boy had just shrugged off his attacks like they were nothing. Is that all you got, man? You're weak. Kankuro laughed at him. I do not know how you were able to take those blows, but there is only one thing that I can do. I have to hit even harder and faster than before. Lee shouted out as he became even faster and the blows were shattering. In fact, they did shatter a part of Kankuro's face right off, leaving a brown wooden thing under it. Damn, didn't know you could hit that hard. Kankuro said as the object that was wrapped up on his back suddenly unwrapped itself. It was then that the real Kankuro came out and the one that Lee had been fighting shed its disguise. Kankuro hadn't expected the boy to start damaging his puppet like that. If the fight continued as it did, then he would have lost, as his puppet couldn't use many of its special techniques while it was disguised. So it was time to take the fight to the next level, and he was just fine with that as he unleashed his favorite puppet to date. The puppet was called Karasu. It had 3 eyes, 4 arms with a tattered cloak. Kankuro with his hands sent his best puppet after Lee. He was surprised by the speed the other kid was moving at, but his puppet had surprises of its own. The arms suddenly shot out to try and trap Lee in the grasp, but he was very agile. He jumped into a handstand and pushed off, and as soon as he landed, jumped again. Damn it, stand still. Kankuro was trying to keep up, but the green kid was fast. To hell with it then. Karasu's mouth opened up as black smoke came out at Lee. The smoke quickly covered the distance, but Lee didn't let it touch him. He did a powerful jump off the ground and actually sailed over the smoke. But Kankuro was prepared. He had Karasu's mouth open and deadly needles covered in toxins flew at Lee. Most of them missed, but Kankuro smiled as a few hit the boy in the leg warmers. Good, that should slow you down. Kankuro yelled out happily to see Lee finally come to a rest on top of the giant stone hands. But something was wrong. The boy wasn't going down at all. What the hell? You should have dropped by now. There is no way you can withstand the toxins I put onto those. Guy was proud of his student. He only had his taijutsu, but he used it to its fullest. Although he was confident that Lee wouldn't have to go all out, if he kept fighting like this he would be taken out of the competition. Perhaps it was time to show them the full power of Lee's youthful flames. Lee, I think it's time to take him off, Guy told him. Lee was surprised that his teacher would say that. But Guy-sensei, you told me to only to do that as a last resort. I know, but there are exceptions and this is one of those times. So take him off and show the world the power of youth and hard work. Guy gave him the thumbs up. Lee smiled brightly at this. He could finally go all out. He pulled down the leg warmers, being mindful of taking off the needles. He took off the leg weights and he could already feel light as a feather now. Now Kankuro knew why the darts didn't affect him. They had hit those damn weights. Well, he was just going to have to make sure his aim was better next time. Man, I wonder how much he's put on since the last time we sparred. Naruto thought as Lee let them go. When they hit the floor, they hit the force of 2 small bombs. The entire place literally shook. What the hell? Naruto yelled out at the insane amount of weight that Lee was using. Kakashi sighed. Now, thanks to Guy, he had a feeling that Naruto and Sasuke would want their weights increased until they could reach that level. He would have to thank Guy properly later for that. Lee suddenly disappeared in a green blur as he moved faster than most eyes would track. He was certainly faster than Kankuro could track. He tried the smoke again, but Lee just blew right through it like the wind. He gritted his teeth as he tried to track Lee's movements. He had his puppet send the arms everywhere he could and fire the toxin darts out of the mouth. He was hoping for a lucky shoot to at least slow the boy down. It didn't work. Lee suddenly appeared right in front of Kankuro and in a low stance. Kankuro knew this was the worst thing for a puppet user. The biggest weakness was that if an opponent could get past the puppet, then the user was totally defenseless. He tried to get away and get his puppet to attack Lee from behind, but it was too late. Lee gave a solid kick to Kankuro's chin, sending him flying up into the air. Lee jumped up and gave another kick to the small of the back, and somehow, he twisted in midair and slammed his leg into the boy's chest. Kankuro rocketed to the ground and slammed hard into the floor. Lee stood ready for more, but it looked like Kankuro wasn't going to get up anytime soon after that combo. The winner of the final round is Rock Lee. The proctor proclaimed. Finally, we can start into the third part of the exam. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.